How should you lift weights when you're training for a marathon? Watch this.
Our first caller is Linda from Massachusetts.
Hi, Linda. How can we help you?
Hi guys, how you doing?
Hey,
We're good.
Thanks for taking my question.
Yeah.
As I said in my email, I've been listening to podcasts forever and a day. I'm not even sure how I found you guys, but you're on all my favorites. And you all, including Doug, bring so much to the table. But I have a special affinity with Sal because I'm Italian. And I was a weight loss counselor for 20 years. So if I had $1 for every time I said I have this study or use an analogy to make a point, I'd be retired by now. But so little history, I grew up in the 70s, so I was always outside, active, moving. And when I was 17, a Nautilus gym opened up in my neighborhood. So I joined and I loved it. And the only information I had back then was bodybuilding magazines, but they did the trick for sure. When I was 22, a coworker asked me to go for a run. So I asked my then workout partner, now husband, to go for a run. And we did our first road race in 87, and we've been racing ever since. But over the years, I've pretty much stuck with 2 to 3 days of weight training and 3 days of cardio or some other activity. And over the years, I've done all the things. We did a bodybuilding competition, bench press competition, marathons, triathlons, CrossFit. I even taught jazzercise back in the day. So, yeah, I'm dating myself. Yeah. So fast forward to the pandemic, I was stuck in the house all by myself and was not happy about that. So when a gym opened up nearby, I joined, and it was classes, but traditional weight training movements, and they had the sleds and all the toys. So it was very consistent, built muscle, and stayed sane, as you know, exercise does. So this year I was turning 60, and I got 15 extra minutes to qualify for the Boston Marathon. Actually, the older you get more time, which is a good thing. So I worked with my running coach, and I eventually joined a regular gym. And but I'm a social butterfly, so I had to join a class. And I was going for a run, and I love to listen to you guys when I run. And of course, you got the question about classes. And I heard Sal say, you're not weight training, you're doing aerobics with weights. And I was like, okay, all right, stop that class, focus on the marathon. And I'm happy to say that I ran my marathon in September, qualified for Boston by 18 minutes.
Wow.
So it was nice to have a cushion.
Great job.
Thank you. So my normal season, I live in New England, so it's preseason now. Track starts in April, get into the heart of my season. Usually my A race is in the fall, and then I back off on the running and do a little bit more weight training. So as someone who's competitive, but also wants to keep my muscle, being 60, what MAPS programs would you recommend for the different times in my season?
Oh, great question. By the way, you were lifting weights when women didn't lift weights. What was that like, if you don't mind me asking? So you were probably the only one in there.
So first of all, every time you guys talk about that, and I get very excited when you encourage a woman any age to lift weights. And I have to tell you, I don't know if it's because I'm from the Boston area, but there were women. It wasn't a lot, but there were. And I had like a really good core group of friends. And, you know, I joined we went to Gold's. I mean, we had been to different, and I'm still married 33 years. So good place to find my husband was the gym. There were the rusty weights, but everybody was so nice. I loved it. And, even like the bench press competitions, they were just all the races. So I just always felt very comfortable, and I'm a social person, so I love working out around people. But everybody was great.
That's great.
It's nice now to see more women in the gym. But
so I gotta say this first before I give you advice, Linda. So someone like you, which I've met people like you, but it's not common. Most people don't have the history of exercise like you do. Haven't done it as consistently. Through the years, you've probably really developed good relationships with exercise. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to do it as long as you have. So advising you almost feels silly to me because you probably know yourself better than I do. But I will say this, the one thing that I've always encountered with people like yourself, and I put myself in this category, is the thing to look out for is to not overdo it. Because you enjoy it so much, you're probably always kind of dancing that line of doing enough and maybe doing a little too much. So that's the thing I would pay attention to. Now, the more that you're running, the less you should be strength training because you can't tolerate doing a lot of either, okay? I think the MAPS Anabolic is a great off-season program. I think MAPS Symmetry is a great off-season program. Symmetry is probably going to give you the best balance.
Even 15 for someone who's doing this much cardio.
And then, in the meantime, if you're doing any strength training while training hard for something like a Boston Marathon, MAPS 15 would be an appropriate type of strength training program during that period of time. But really, the strength training, you think of it like
it's complementary.
It's going to be and if you do more running, you got to do you can't do all of it. Otherwise, you'll really set yourself up for injury. And training first off, to qualify for a Boston Marathon, people don't realize it's a tough thing to do. I know that, I don't know, what was the time that you had to get? Because I know when I trained somebody, but they were not in your age group, they had to get under 3 hours, I think it was, or less. What was the time for you?
So, and it is, so men, it's 30 minutes more. So if it was a guy, that's not uncommon. It's usually around 3 hours. But for my age, it was a 4:20 and I did a 4:01.
Good for you.
But I've run it qualified I've done it 5 times, and my time will qualify me for 25. But I didn't even know what qualified meant when I did my first one. I got an invitational number from my running club. And that was 1998. And when I finished, somebody said, "You qualified?" And I was like, what does that even mean? So now that's a big goal for anybody who can do it. But I thought that was reasonable. I did my last one in 2010, and I'm like, never again. I've done other marathons, and then when I hit 60, I'm like, well, maybe I can do it again. And so I was really happy. I'll get another chance.
It's a big deal. So when I used to train people that would run marathons, after their competition, I would always have them take a minimum of 2 to 3 weeks off. And in fact, studies will show the damage can last as long as 4 to 6 weeks. So I'd have them take about 2 to 3 weeks off. I would have them feed their bodies appropriately, rest, allow things to heal, allow the inflammation to kind of go down because you probably feel like you got hit by a truck, for days afterwards. And then when they'd come back to working out, we would start very slowly. But then eventually the routine would look a lot like a MAPS Anabolic type of routine. It's a very good basic strength training, muscle building program. Now, the reason why I also mentioned MAPS Symmetry is because that's going to give you the most carryover to all the other things that you do because it trains, there's a lot of unilateral work in it. And that's going to benefit all the other activities that you like to do because you're so multifaceted. You're not just doing this to look good. You love to perform. The other program that would work well is MAPS Performance. Those 3 programs would be your core programs. Anabolic, Symmetry, and Performance would be the best ones for you. And then during training time, when you're doing other types of things, MAPS 15 would be a great way to kind of maintain or help maintain strength.
I love MAPS Symmetry just as a diagnostic, right? You go through that, like especially if you're a competitor or you run a lot and you're just naturally going to kind of build some imbalances along the way that you can highlight and address with that program and strengthen, and especially like around the joints to keep them healthy because, you're such an active person, want to keep going and pursuing whatever you want to pursue to reinforce, the stability and strength around your joints I think it's always something to consider.
100%. Do you have any of the programs I mentioned? Do you have any of those?
So yeah, I did. So when I heard that, I did get Anabolic, and I got Prime and Anywhere, like over time, and I've done none of them. So the reason why I like the programs is because I've been lifting weights for so long. I tend to go in the gym, and depending on my mindset or how busy I am at work, I know what to do, so I'll just do push, pull, squats, And I was like, I need a program for the winter to dive into and really focus on. So I thought that Anabolic, which I have, would be a good start. And I read it. I like the trigger sessions, and I'm at that point where I'm ready to start, getting in, going back to the gym with a plan instead of just going in and doing the stuff that I know how to do.
I'm going to send you.
That's why I like the plans.
You just really reminded me of your experience in the gym. I'm going to send you Symmetry. I think that one's going to give you the best. I think that's going to give you the best results because it's probably going to be the most different from anything you've done. So I'm going to send you Symmetry, and when you're ready, that's the one to start. Follow it as we wrote it out, and I think you'll really enjoy what it does to your body and what it does to your performance.
Yeah, well, that's, I always, whatever other exercise I did, it was always, how did it affect my performance? And I have to say that 100% my longevity has been to weight training.
Yeah.
Because you can imagine a lot of my contemporaries, I have a lot of friends that have been running for a long time, both me and my husband and triathletes. And because they don't do weight training, they just never did, they are just falling apart.
Yep,
and a lot of triathletes stop doing the run part because they can't run. And I'm like, oh, shoot me when I can't run, when that day comes. But so far, that's why I always have stuck to 3 days a week. 4 doesn't work for me. Even training for a marathon, 3 is perfect. And then doing the weight training. And I think I put in my email, I always find a good PT. And this one was really great because he had me doing all the balance, the bands, the side movements that really kept me strong. So that was good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing something new, especially in the dark and cold winter here in the Boston area. And then the other quick question I had was about reverse dieting. So I went on my first diet at 13. Luckily, Atkins was all the rage, and I just always found that higher protein works great for me. Even when I trained for my first marathon, high carbs just didn't feel good. But I'm a small person. I'm about 120 pounds. I'm 5'1". So if I have 120 grams of protein, I tend to like fat more than carbs. So 50 to 60 grams of fat. And then it's really hard for me to get even like 150 grams of carbs with 3 meals and some carbs. So, I don't know what you think I should be at, like, say, in this part of my training.
You're
like
good.
Calorie-wise, should I try to reverse diet?
When you're done with your race, I would go. What are your it says here calories around 1,700. Is that true?
Yeah, like 6. Depends on if I'm really focused. It might end up being a little less because when I'm really thinking about it, I won't have the handful of nuts or all that.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say that would be accurate.
I'd go after your race. I would go up about try and be consistent at 1,800 calories, and then work it up to about 2,000 calories while doing MAP Symmetry, and you're just going to get strong from it.
And your ratio to fat and carbs is fine, especially if you feel good on that.
That's right.
You're hitting your protein intake, which would be the number one priority, and then really the ratio of carbs or fat, I change that based on the client.
That's it.
If they tell me
you feel good, you're doing it.
Yeah, they tell me I just feel better on higher fat and moderate to low carb, then that's what we run. If they say they feel better on higher carb, then I'll run that and a little bit lower fat. So if you like the way you feel, just keep those ratios the same and then just bump the calories a couple hundred calories.
That's it.
Yeah, I learned to trust myself, and honestly, even if I gained a little, as I'm covered in sweaters now here. But I also just wanted to say, I love listening to you guys because, as I said, I've been listening to fitness podcasts for a long time. And now when I listen to them, I'm like, know that, heard that, that's the latest craze. And I just enjoy your conversations. And I love hearing you encourage other people because I really have a hard time watching everybody around me, and I work in the software industry, so they're just so unhealthy. So when I hear somebody, and just it's really fresh the way you talk, and you talk about all contemporary things. So I know that your success is because you stuck to what you feel is important. But I just want to say, you're doing a great job, and I really enjoy listening to you. So keep it up. I love it.
Thank you, Linda. Wish I could hug you right
now.
Thank you so much.
Compliment. Thank you.
All right.
Have a nice day.
Have a good one.
Thanks again.
I want to point something out real quick to people listening right now. Okay.
She's
qualified. She qualified for the Boston Marathon. She runs 3 days a week. She eats 150 grams carbs a day. That right there flies in the face of the belief that you got to run every day, beat the shit out of yourself, and all that other stuff.
Right.
In fact, most people overtrain when training for marathons.
She's also
her body.
She's also the goal, right? Like, I mean, she's 60 years old. She's weight training. And by the way, I know a lot of people think that we're so hard on or anti-cardio or anti-running so much. She's a great example of someone that I'd love to see doing that.
Yeah,
totally.
She has a love and passion for it. She recognizes the benefits of strengthening, and she highlighted exactly why we come off anti-cardio is because so many people to neglect the strength training and they run themselves to pain to where they can't even run or exercise.
It's a tool of abuse.
It is. And so most people unfortunately fall in that category. She's she's rare.
Yeah. And I one thing I want to add
She's
too.
training to support her running.
Someone like her, I almost would. I mean, we could have gone a lot longer because I was going to ask her questions. When people have been doing it as long as she has, there's a lot of stuff I wanted to ask her about her experience, what she learned and what she figured out. Because you could tell she figured this out through the years on what works for her body. And and she's got a lot of training wisdom that she's developed over the years. And that's where everybody can get. If you stay consistent and you do it for the right reasons, you can get there.